The bookshop kings of London hold sway over quiet carpeted places surrounded by all that to the bookman makes life worth living. In folio, quarto, octavo, and small but costly duodecimo, their subjects stand nobly ranked around them, garbed in vellum cut in the Florence of the Borgias, in the full calf of Elizabeth England, in the scarlet mantles made by Riviere. To the happy long purse such places are heaven. To the man cursed with first folio ideas and a limited income they are places of perpetual envy and hopeless heartburn. Such a one is the large and roomy shop and premises at the Bond Street end of Conduit Street, numbers 34 and 35, the shop of Maggs Brothers. They modestly call it a shop, but it is far more. It is a literary museum of rich treasures. The walls, when not covered with precious volumes or fine old prints, are decorated in a delicate shade of light blue, and over all is an atmosphere of quiet and repose. Here the sale of books has been brought to a fine art. It is an edition deluxe of a bookshop. And yet, if you are lucky enough to find one of the brothers, there is always time for a chat about rare books and that elusive first edition that we all of us long for, till we possess. It was just 69 years ago that the late Mr. Hugh Maggs, who is what Dibdin might have called an irrepressible bibliophile, opened a shop in Paddington stocked with his own treasures. Little did he foresee the success which lay for him between the covers of his books. But by far his most valuable acquisitions were three sons who each developed a love of books. After 34 years of industrious work Mr. Maggs retired, and left his sons, Mr. B. D. Maggs, Mr. C. A. Maggs, and Mr. Ernest Maggs in charge of his business. In 1901 the firm removed to 109, Strand, and later to the fine premises in Conduit Street. Hard work and knowledge is the secret of success in this, as in all business. Famous scoops are all very well, but they are made by the customers. He smiled a quietly humorous smile. I remember some years ago how Mr. Augustine Birrell, when prowling round a London salesroom, picked up a little volume of old pamphlets bound together. Among them were a few pages which he recognized with a thrill as a first edition of Gray's Elegy. He paid £2.60 for the book. We paid him some hundreds of pounds for it. On the death of the client to whom we sold it, the book came up for sale at Sotheby's and realized £600, this showing a very handsome profit to the deceased's estate. I remember we once went to the house of two old ladies, descendants of Benjamin West, second president of the Royal Academy. They were destroying papers, the floor piled with fragments. Out of the heap we picked torn and mutilated letters of George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Robert Fulton, and other priceless things which these dear souls thought were only fit for destruction. Talking of autographs reminds me that we have here in this shop the finest collection of autographs for sale in the world. Would you like to read a letter written by Queen Elizabeth? Mr. Maggs came back with 3 portfolios bound in scarlet leather. In one was a letter written by Queen Elizabeth, an imperious letter to Henry IV of France set down entirely in Her Majesty's fair Roman hand. In another was a long and graphic account by Oliver Cromwell of an action in July, 1643, in which his troops came up horse to horse with the enemy and had a pretty time with swords and pistols. And the third was an appealing letter writ from Richmond on February 22, 1531, by Catherine of Aragon to her nephew the King of Spain. She wrote of the proposed divorce from Henry VIII, of my lord the King and the woman he is living with him, and of the delay of the Pope. These precious documents present an interesting comparison in value. The Elizabeth letter would cost you £315, the Cromwell letter £350, the Catherine of Aragon letter £600. Autograph collecting is an expensive business. Mr. Maggs brought to my reverent hands just 1 or 2 more of his treasures. One which took my fancy was a richly illuminated manuscript of the Bible in French, from Diana of Poitiers' library, 3 volumes large folio. Diana, who died in 1566, was, when 40 years of age, the mistress of the 18-year-old French King Henry II. She ruled him for 20 years. This treasure is priced at £3,500. Can you imagine the anxiety of possessing it? The many times you would visit it at night, candle in hand, just to see that it was safely sleeping between its thick boarded brown morocco?